So to kick us off, I wanted to warmly introduce Brigitte King. With her 20 years of personal history, she is a student of global perspectives. She's had both marketing and digital roles. She has cross-category experience, so consumer, packaged goods, apparel, beauty, personal care. She's been in brands like L'Oreal, Calvin Klein, PVH, and now Colgate-Palmolive. She's held both brand roles as well as Center of Excellence roles. And today she leads the global digital organization for Colgate-Palmolive. She's going to give us a case study that's close to her in the context of a shifting digital landscape, how you can evolve the use of consumer data and signals to craft brand strategies, to focus and make more effective product innovation, which is all ultimately in service of delivering relevance and value to consumers and customers. So thank you, and with that, welcome Brigitte.
Hi, everybody. Okay, first disaster of the morning, the mic thing fell off, so let me put that in a pocket. So I'm very pleased to be here, and thank you, Yael, for having me. Nice to be back. I really do value these experiences, and I don't know about you guys, but it is really nice to get outside of my four walls, both physically and mentally, and actually release my to-do list for the day and think more about how I can sit back, listen and learn, let alone impart some of that exhausting work history that you just heard about. So my goal today is to talk to you about how insights from digital data can power up brands. But my ask of you is also to think about how you can lead that kind of transformation in whatever world you live in and whatever company or dimension of work you do. Because what I'm going to talk about today is how hard I think that is to do at scale and effectively and efficiently embedding it in the business where you can show business value. So a little bit about Colgate. Colgate is a 200-year-old squarely CPG company, present in over 200 countries around the world. We do about $19 billion in sales, and we have a very simple, clear mission that our CEO believes in and expands on with everything that we do, which is we want to be every day, and we aspire to be, in our future, a caring, innovative growth company that is reimagining the health of people, pets, and our planet. And that's a really important mission statement. It galvanizes us around the world for a common purpose. And the good news is it's working. Colgate-Palmolive is not only a long-historied company, but we just posted Q2 earnings, and we had plus 9.8% organic growth. So off to a great start for the year, and I think really focused on how this shows up every day in what we do. The other thing is we're a lot bigger than Colgate, the trademark brand. Although that brand is in more homes than any other, you can see from this slide, we are also in pet care, we are in personal care and skin health, and we are in home care. So we have a lot of brands to manage and a lot of insights that come from those brands. But the other thing that's unique about Colgate-Palmolive is our values. We actually relaunched these. It was a really big part of the senior team's accountability to relaunch our values post the pandemic, to bring the company back together and center ourselves on both current values that we've always cared about and future values that we believe would propel growth. And you can see from the slide how we dimensionalize those, but they are truly about being a caring culture, an inclusive one, and a courageous one. And the word courageous was new for Colgate because it was about how do we be more courageous about our future, about new thinking, about new business models, about new brands. So I think it's a really important word, and I'll come back to why I'm showing you this, because a lot of the digital data we have requires courage from our people to explain it, argue for it, embed it in the business cycle, and that takes a lot of stamina and courage to do. But first, I can't do any of this without people, so I wanted to do a little shout out to my global digital team here, headquartered in New York at our Park Avenue offices. We actually built this team during the pandemic. I joined Colgate, and a week later, the pandemic shut us down. And so I hired many of these people, having never met them physically, hired them virtually, or I met them on calls from the Colgate world and brought them into the team. But our goal was very simple. We needed to bring subject matter expertise to Colgate-Palmolive at the center with digital domain specialists that could really galvanize and do the change management we needed to do to bring our digital transformation to life. It's a small but mighty team, complemented actually now by hundreds of people of digital specialists around the Colgate world, to the tune of over 650. So it's a big, big community now, and it's a really important one that is helping infuse new growth into our brands. Along the way, I asked the team for some team photos. They only gave me the fun ones. So these are the non-org chart photos, but we try to have some fun along the way because we work hard as well. So I had the pleasure of being here in 2022, and I always try to bring a topic I'm passionate about, because I feel like if I'm going to speak about something, I want to pick something I'm intellectually intrigued by, passionate about, but then I can also study it myself as I prepare for a conference like this. And so it brings a lot of value back to me. And in 2022, I talked about consumer decision journeys. I think these are so fundamental to modern marketing today. I think they are so foundational and so revealing in nature. And yet, time and time again, no matter what company I've worked in, I find that they're not deployed consistently or at scale. They're not always embedded in the regular business operational cycle. So they really need to be. And my premise today is the same. So does digital data. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of us, is how do we bring that into the CEO's vernacular? When is he asking us for what's the behavioral data that shows this is true? That's what I want to have us change. And I think that's the really important part of what we can exchange on today. So change is the constant theme. Transformations never end. You know this. We're all feeling it. I think the most underutilized word relative to change and transformation is the word resilience. The fact that it takes resilience to manage the changes, navigate the changes, survive and thrive in those changes. So it's really important because they're going to continue. And I think with digital data specifically, it started with the digital revolution, right? I mean, it just opened up an incredibly new mode of understanding how behavior was changing. And I think that's really important. All these new touch points became real to us, and we suddenly had an influx of data and insights that we never knew we could have before. I think all of that is really changing the nature of how we do business. Complexity and choices increased radically for consumers, let alone how we manage our businesses. And all these disruptive commerce models started, and they continue. Different things surprise us every day. So did Gen AI. So all these new things keep happening, and we have to navigate them with resilience, but also with a mindset that change is constant. I think today, when I'm looking at the CPG world, what I'm seeing as the really big change that's hard is what I'm calling the Omni-fusion of physical and digital. We have a ton of business at Colgate-Palmolive done via planogram sets, via physical brick and mortar locations, and that's fine. But we have an increasing amount of our business done on digital commerce sites and D2C sites. And that is changing how we need to think about embedding those digital insights and analytics into the way we do physical decision making. So I'm going to give you concrete examples later of how that's showing up for us. But I think this Omni-fusion is really what's hard, and it's what's next. And it's going to be very much about how we get ready for the future. So with the premise of Omni, physical and digital blending together, is also the premise around intentional and behavioral data. Many of you in this room probably already know what the differences are between these two. But in many companies, I do a lot of education around this for C-suite executives, let alone brand marketers, who didn't grow up with both data sets. So intentional data is the data we all know quite well. It's the product testing data, it's the concept testing data. It's data that fundamentally is about what consumers say they will or won't do, or what they intend to do. I grew up on that data. The data that absolutely intrigues me and lights me on fire is behavioral data. Behavioral data is what they're actually doing. It's what they're clicking on, it's what they're navigating through, it's what they're actually purchasing that you can see online, it's browsing behavior, it's all those things, privacy compliant, of course, but it's all those things that lend you to have a different mindset around what insights you can bring to the table to make better decisions in your company. And I think that's the premise of what needs to happen today, is this blending. And no matter what organization I've been in, I still would probably reflect and say to you that intentional data is still here, behavioral data is here. Don't know if anybody would agree or not, but I haven't seen it yet be treated on an equal importance level. And that's why I go back to, when I go into the CEO's office, I always want to bring him one behavioral data insight that he never knew before, that's quantifiable in nature, and that's going to change his mind about something. That's learning for us at Colgate. That's something about changing the way we normally operate. And I would ask all of you to also help me figure out and talk to me in the break, how have you encountered this balance of data and what have you seen in your companies? Because these digital touch points, they matter a lot. They matter because they're happening all around us exponentially for our consumers and for our brands, whether we like it or not. The interactions between physical and digital are absolutely blending. They're always happening at warp speed. Online activity, we know from studies and from lots of different stats, are proven to influence exploration of brands, discovery of brands, purchase of brands. So it's not just the physical presence anymore of a brand that matters. And behavior changes, we all know, occurred. We've all changed how we expect things to be found in an online and digital world versus how we expect to discover brands in the physical locations. So these things are blurring and blending. And all I'm saying is there's a digital data spin-off. There's an exhaustive data happening that we need to start capturing and monetizing for our companies. So being omni-channel with this mindset, it's not just the consumer, it's a business mindset to have as well. It's a business strategy to deploy into your companies. Because all this data, I do believe, and I have seen it, make a real impact on the business. And I don't know about you guys, I don't get any pushback when I say we need to go get this data on the resources required or on the funding, because we've been able to show how revealing it can be in terms of informing our decision making. So how can digital data drive insights? You all already know it's hugely valuable data in many ways. You've probably touched it in many different places, but I'm just going to give you a list here of the top 10 that I put together with my team. Just a basics. Some of them might be too basic for you. You know them already. But I think the premise would be, are you touching all of these at the depth and breadth that they deserve? Are they fully embedded in the way you go to market or in the way you create products or campaigns? That would be the real question as I go through some concrete examples of how we've done this. So let's start with the top 10. The first one is brand websites, right? Almost everybody has a brand website, whether you're B2B or B2C. And that brand website spins off a lot of data. I mean, it's fantastic stuff. Like, how long has someone spent on my site? What are they consuming? What content are they clicking into? Where did they come from? Upstream, downstream traffic? What's happening? And that is behavioral data that you absolutely can learn from. And at Colgate-Palmolive, we actually relaunched Colgate.com yesterday. Go ahead and check it out. So these stats are from the old Colgate.com, but we relaunched yesterday, thank goodness, no website crash. But what was really important even before is I was saying to the team, do we know how much time is being spent on the site? Before we relaunch and redesign the site, do we know how people are behaving now? Do we know what we seek to improve? And that allows you to build a better brief. And so I look all the time, and we've created dashboards of behavioral data where I can see time spent by country on the site. I can see what content's being consumed. And so the top 3 content areas used to be gum health, whitening, and kids oral care. So that's insight data I have to get to the marketers. That is data I have to get to the head of oral care who's devising a new strategic plan and where we need to focus our efforts. And what if his list was different? What if his priority list was completely different? What would that say about our consumers versus our strategies? So there's a premise here in terms of how you try to operationalize the insights that you get from behavioral data. The second is D2C. So D2C is super important. It's the best of the best, I call it, because you can see the full consumer journey all the way from where they started to where they ended and where they checked out and what they checked out on. If you want to geek out a little bit, my favorite data on D2C is abandoned cart data. I love looking at that. Who put what in their cart and why did they not check out? You can see people like Amazon, et cetera, have certainly mastered that to an nth degree, but it's our job to figure out, why does this product keep going in a cart and not get closed out as a sale? And there's lots of data that you can actually see and explain and then have new ideas around how to conquer the purchase path. There's search data, obvious data set, but I consider it gold. It really is. It's not to be underestimated. Google does an awesome year-end review. So if you want to look at what human behavior feels like, looks like in a given year, check out their YouTube year-end review. And that search video is global. So it's all cultures, worldwide search trends. And you get a feeling of what the world is searching for and searching about. And that's insightful for a global company like ours. We look at search and we seek to master sustained search volume, which is what's happened over the past 15 months, rising queries, emerging queries, and declining ones. And I do this by market, because it's different. And because the general managers in our markets need to be able to be fluent on what's happening. Then what's even more important is our search strategies have to be informed by the search data that we're getting. So our terms and what we do with keywords and how we develop content are all reflective of this incredible search data. Here's a small example to show you that it's not just queries, top and rising search terms. It's a lot about seasonality. So obviously sunscreen peaks and there's seasonal searches for sunscreen. But what I find interesting is what people are searching also with sunscreen. So I'll look at related terms. And what's happened is marketing will then say, wait, I could do a partnership with X, or I could think about activating this way, not just purely looking at product centrism, but consumer centrism. And then there's email, an unserved, I'd say undeserved channel. Like no one really pays enough attention, but it's still an incredibly important touch point. And that channel is so easy to test in. So we do a lot of A/B testing. We're doing a lot of subject line testing. You can see an example here on the screen, 2 subject lines, right? Sounds so simple. Gifts that positively shine, dazzle her with this surprise. Open rate difference, plus 81%. It's a big deal. So now you have to think to yourself, that's not just about my email team optimizing subject lines. What am I doing with that intelligence and that insight? With my advertising agency, with my activation teams, with my marketing teams. There's language here that matters to consumers. And it's so easy to get your hands on it and then try to cross-functionally democratize that insight so it helps other people make better decisions. It's easy, it's fast, and on email, it's relatively cheap. We also do value exchange testing on emails, and this was interesting because it started to unlock how we teamed up with our commercial sales teams. So value exchanges, for anyone running an email program, knows this is key. It's whether the offer resonates or not. So if test A is exclusive access or B is free product or a coupon, how you express that value exchange to the consumer will matter. But again, don't just leave it in the email silo, right? Talk to your commercial teams. Maybe they're going to put POS out there that has a different value exchange and offer on it that's much more consumer-driven than anniversary-driven from last year's sales. That's where you start to make change. That's where you have an inflection point where digital and behavioral data starts getting embedded in the business. Social media, you all know quite well. Obviously, another treasure trove of data and incredibly important. It's where the eyeballs are today. And you can understand your audience really well. You can understand what content is resonating really well. And you really need to look at this because you've got to be better at managing your consumer decision journey in the moments that matter and understanding what works along that path. So we've been experimenting a lot, especially with our skin health brands, with taking a look at how to derive insights out of social to infuse and inform everything, content, copy, everything. And this is something that the team and I learned together, and we used other brands as examples of how we needed to make our own change happen internally. We said, we're creating all these highly polished, highly curated pieces of content or campaign work. But when you look at other brands, you start to see that their creation is much more organic. It's a lot more real. It has a lot more authenticity to it, and it's probably more culturally relevant. And so we started trying to use our insights and what we saw outside happening to kind of unpack a little bit our past way of doing things. And what did it lead to? It led to a campaign that broke the rules. Irish Spring, the team was very courageous, and they were looking at all the trended social data, they were looking at UGC content, and they said, this whole Riz thing is a big deal. So I have a 15-year-old son, and I'd be like, what's Riz? And I was like, what is that? He said, it's charisma, right? So this is the shortcut for charisma, and it's a trending social term. And basically, the team broke the rules. Look what they did. They played with the brand name of the product, Irish Spring. And they said they launched this campaign to get more Riz. You'll smell good too. But this broke rules. In my day, you would never touch the brand name on a package. Never. Here, the team was saying, we need to go do this. We're not hitting the right generation of consumers. We're not attracting the right buzz. We're not engaging with consumers on social the way this brand deserves to be. We need to do something different. Very breaking the rules, courageous campaign that worked. Kudos to the North America team who did that. Ratings and reviews, another one, you know this well, and I'll speed up a little bit because I see my timer going up there. But here's my message on ratings and reviews. Do not let someone come in and report on a product launch to the CEO and drop the one verbatim rating and review that showed the product was amazing. Do not let that happen. As insights leaders, as digital leaders, it's your job to actually use AI, use whatever platform you need to quantify all those reviews, good, bad, or ugly, and put the data on the table so people really know what's happening. And this is hard, because not everybody wants bad news on a new product launch. But you have to put context around the verbatims that are happening on the comments and on the ratings and reviews, and that changes the game. We have had to change our R&D cycle on addressing a product issue because we would not let go the fact that, no, it's not okay, that one comment that the CEO heard is not the one that we're seeing around the product launch. We're seeing a lot of other issues, and we need to talk about them. That's courageous leadership. And the digital shelf, huge, right? I talked about physical planograms. Digital planograms are just as important. We have effectively at Colgate, and my team will have to remember, 41 markets they're at now, launched digital shelf analytics. I can see the digital planogram in 41 markets as much as someone can walk into my office and show me the Walmart planogram in North America. That's a level of insight using data from digital that's completely changed how we are working on our go-to-market at Colgate. Product innovation, it's the hardest. I think Christine referenced it a little bit. This is the hardest one. Why? Because there's a status quo in how products get developed, especially in CPG companies. Gate stages, concept product tests, formula tests, it's all very linear. How do you infuse digital data into that product testing? How do you make sure behavioral data gets a seat at the table? And that you really can start to think differently about testing and differently about qualifications for product innovation, let alone ideas from behavioral data that actually warrant being a product. So, no talk is complete without some nod to Gen AI. I did want to share with you a little bit about how Colgate-Palmolive is approaching this. We know there's lots of use cases in CPG for Gen AI. We're after them too. Here are kind of 3 pillar areas that we are focused on. But I think what might be more valuable to you is to share with you a little bit about how we're operating with Gen AI. We've built freedom within a framework. What we've done is we've said, we really believe, given our values, we have to have guardrails for responsible use. So we have training across the entire Colgate world that is mandatory before you engage with our proprietary AI hub. And we have just rules of engagement so people know how to use it effectively and safely. But we're also very cognizant that we have to unleash, right, the speed and ease of using it. So we've paved this road to accelerate it at Colgate. We have lots of councils and communities that are experimenting on this. And we have to make sure, this was my add to it, is there value being created? So what you have to make sure of when you're dealing with any shiny new thing, which happens a lot in digital, you have to make sure there's going to be an ROI or a value creation that you can somewhat monetize or prove. And I don't mean a pure ROI from an MMM. I mean an ROI for the return on effort that you are deploying human capital and resources against in your company. And if you can show that, again, about productivity or time saved, great. But that's the real key for me, is these 3 types of guardrails that we're trying to create for Colgate to be effective at running Gen AI. So I hope by now you've heard from me on my passion for CDJs and also for behavioral data and how to really bring it to the center and give it a seat at the table that it deserves. Make sure you leverage your teams. Make sure you embed this data at scale and consistently within companies. It's not okay to be episodic. It's really important to be part of the business cycle and embedded. And there's so many opportunities for that, as you can see from the domains that I covered. So my ask is create your own evolution or revolution, no matter what condition your data assets are in, no matter how mature your data is or not. Take the opportunity. You'll learn a lot. You'll become consumer-centric quite naturally when you start steeping yourself in behavioral data. Because I do believe in any digital transformation, it's my oil. It's the gas that fuels a lot of what we do, but it's certainly beneficial to the business. And it's our job together to make sure that digital data and behavioral data really can impact growth for your companies. So with that, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Oh, sure. Yes. Can I stay up here? Is that okay? It's more comfortable. Okay.
Hey, really great way to start us off. Thank you. I applaud you for putting so much faith in, over here.
Where are you? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I was looking at her. I'm like, that is not a male voice.
We rode on the bus together.
Yes, I saw you this morning.
So a couple questions about consumer journey. I applaud the fact that you're really relying and considering it so fundamental.
Yeah.
Given the number of brands that you have, the investment it takes to do consumer journey work, how frequently and at what level do you do it? At the brand level, key brands, categories?
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Great question. We have to make choices. There's no doubt. If you do them well and they're deep, they're expensive and they take a while. And so what we have at Colgate is we have decided what our 7 priority growth markets are. And we've established very clearly which brands and which categories and then which brands will drive that growth. And that's where we actually have a pretty rigorous system where it's like, do you have a CDJ or not on each of those? And that list is governed. Like, we really make sure we're doing it. So, India is a growth market for us. North America is a growth market. Do you have a CDJ and do you have it on X brands? And we'll make those choices with the teams on the ground who are funding this work, right? Because that's where things get tough. So we're selective and we're prioritized around how we ask for CDJ coverage. Yeah. Anything else? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation. Do you have early examples of Gen AI, or maybe areas that you see more promising where that?
I do. I have so many, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about them.
Okay.
So let me try to give you some ideas. Gen AI, can generate incredible content if prompted correctly. And so one of the things that we see across all our brands worldwide is I don't think we have nearly enough good content working for us at scale. And then if we ask for the content to be made, there's a whole long cycle: briefing, approving, costing of that, agencies, and then it just takes forever. So part of what I've tried to do with Gen AI is say, what problem do I really have? And how can this help me fix it, go faster, go better? And in that particular use case for content, I'm having the team experiment a lot with what content they can create that just goes a whole lot faster than the process I just described. And fill gaps, places where we know we don't have enough content on brands that simply can't afford to make it all at the velocity and volume that we need it, especially for digital channels. That's a problem I need to solve. And I think that's a place, Gen AI is a place where it's going to help me solve that. So I haven't gotten past the approval process yet, though. That, I would tell you, is my next barrier. Because one of the things that, as you know through the press, right, we don't want things to go out consumer-facing without it being checkpointed in the right ways. But now I've got a problem. Imagine the volume and velocity of content Gen AI can create and what that's going to do to the throughput in the company approval process. love to hear how you guys are solving that. So, sure. Okay, thank you very much.